Okay, let's pick up where we left off in the holiness.com dating survival guide. In this hardback cover of the guide, some of you may have the paperback. Oh, and by the way, you can purchase this online at various booksellers, Amazon.com, and other booksellers. The holiness.com dating survival guide. Just search on that, and you should be able to find where you can buy different copies. So, depending on whether you got the hardback or paperback, your page numbering may be different, but the context should be the same. And we're going to pick up in this particular hardback version of the book on the toward the bottom of the page 8, where it says, "If you are not convinced of the need to have guidelines." So let's get going. If you are not convinced of the need to have guidelines regarding dating, I ask you to look at the devastation that has resulted from the lack of guidelines. This devastation is quite apparent to me not only in secular, non-Christian society, but within the progressive churches of progressive cultures. You might think devastation is overstating things, but I ask you to look at the number of children conceived by unmarried believers. Children who, thus born to unmarried parents, are more likely to be raised in poverty without the blessing and support of a mother and father present in the home. I sincerely believe that many of these single men and women truly accepted Christ, but fell into sin as a result of not following certain dating rules. But the devastation does not stop at the difficulties caused by singles starting families. Many singles fall into the sin of fornication and don't conceive children, yet there is still great emotional and spiritual hurt that occurs by giving oneself to another in an intimate way outside of marriage. If you give yourself in an intimate way to your date, when your date gets tired of you and dumps you for his or her next thrill, someone is bound to be deeply emotionally hurt. Despite the pleasure of fornication, the guilt of sin is present in the heart and mind of those who take part in sexual sins. Those who feel no guilt, who have no conscience, are even more pitiable. And do I need to mention the physical diseases and illnesses among church folk that is the result of promiscuity? I must also ask the question as to why the divorce rate in the church rivals that of the non-believing community. Is this not at least partly due to improper dating practices that result in awful marriage choices? Okay, so hopefully I've convinced you that there is a need for instruction or guidelines regarding dating. Let me say that there is much in the following guidelines and that addresses ways to maintain sexual purity. Additionally, there are some things in the following guidelines that address other concepts that are not as much related to sexual purity, but are nevertheless important to dating. Some of these guidelines will help one stay clear of unnecessary temptations to sin. Some of these guidelines have more to do with helping individuals avoid unnecessary hardships and pain. And some of these guidelines will simply help prevent you from wasting your time with undesirable dating prospects, as an example. I cannot guarantee that these guidelines will always be easy to follow, nor can I guarantee that a person will avoid every possible hardship by following these guidelines. But I hope these instructions will assist in avoiding obvious and unnecessary trials. These guidelines are useful for both men and women, and both older and younger singles. They are not the result of some religious person trying to invent some totally new, deep, and mysterious theories. These guidelines have come about by the study, prayer, and experience of godly people striving to live according to the Bible and the holiness lifestyle commanded therein. Okay, let's start a new section entitled Let Us Begin. I want to first define what I mean by dating, which biblically speaking only occurs in the context of male-female relationships. The word dating or date is somewhat challenging to define in a brief sentence or two, but I feel it is important to attempt a brief definition in order to provide context for the guidelines of this instructional book. So, I provide a definition below that may differ somewhat from the explanation in your dictionary. However, this definition will hopefully be broad enough to include what most people think of when they hear the words dating and a date in the context of male and female relationships. Dating defined. Date. When two people of the opposite gender, male and female, and who are not related, not of the same family, mutually agree to attend some event together or visit some particular location together on a social basis, often as the result of the attraction of at least one of the persons to the other. The word date can also be used to refer to either of the persons who attends the event, the date as described above. Dating can simply be defined as the occurrence of or participation in one or more dates. Let me provide an example of what is normally not considered a date. Agreeing to see your dentist to have a tooth pulled would not usually constitute a date in our sense of the word, as a meeting is not for recreational reasons or for the enjoyment of the individuals involved, but for the correction of a medical or health problem. Okay, I think we're going to end there. It might be a little shorter segment today because the next section I don't want to get into and stop partway between. The next section is entitled homosexuality. So when we come back in our next segment, we'll try to get all the way through the section entitled homosexuality. Important topic that we need to touch on. And so until next time, get your copy of the Holiness.com Dating Survival Guide, and you can read along with me if you do that. Or you can read ahead, and you don't have to wait to see what the next section says. You can read your copy and then come back and know what I'm going to read and read along with us. Okay, until next time, be blessed and follow the Bible, which defines the life that we Christians should live as a life of holiness. Till next time.